Forget flat Earth. Let me introduce you to Earth shaped like a pizza. It might look delicious, but it would be a scorching, violent, breathtaking place. Would you dare to live there? There could be anywhere from 10 sextillion to 1 septillion exoplanets in the observable universe. And approximately 0 of those are shaped like a flat planetary pizza. It's gravitationally impossible for a planet to form in a shape like this. When planets form, they tend to clump all the rock and dust around them evenly in all directions. The most oddly shaped exoplanet scientists have discovered is in the shape of an egg. This exoplanet is called WASP-12b, which orbits a distant star some 1,200 light-years away from us. WASP-12b is egg-shaped due to its proximity to its star, which pulls on the planet with enormous gravity, stretching it in the process. But flat planets? Well, if they do exist, we haven't found one yet. But hey, this is What If, where anything is possible, even Earth shaped like a mouth-watering, pepperoni-covered pie. A pizza-shaped Earth wouldn't be much different from a flat Earth. It would have continents scattered like pizza toppings and a crust of mountains around its edge. Maybe this pizza-shaped Earth would get hit by more meteorites. And if it did, it would be the perfect tie-in for the sponsor of today's video, Gentle Bands. They offer rings made from rare materials like tungsten, meteorites, and even dinosaur bones. I got the Oceanus ring, and it's like touching a piece of history. Okay, now let's get back to our slice of pizza Earth. If this planetary pie is anything like what flat-earthers envision, it would be in for a wild ride. Flat-earthers don't believe in gravity. They think all planets accelerate upward at 9.8 meters per square second. If that were true, our pizza-shaped Earth would move faster and faster, eventually surpassing the speed of light. After 4.5 billion years of constant acceleration, Earth would be moving at about 4.63 billion times the speed of light. This would violate the laws of physics and tear the planet apart, potentially even breaking spacetime itself. But hey, it might be one way to invent time travel. As Earth approached the speed of light, time dilation would kick in, and time would stand still for everyone on Earth. Now, let's get back to reality. Gravity is real, and it would wreak havoc on a pizza-shaped Earth. The center of gravity would be in the middle, feeling like normal Earth gravity. But further away from the center, gravity would start pulling you sideways, and at the edge, it would feel almost horizontal. The atmosphere would be thinner at the edges, making it hard to breathe, and you'd experience extreme dust storms and harsh weather. Living near the center of this pizza Earth would be the best option. The oceans would pool here, creating a balmy, livable climate. But on the edges, where gravity is weaker, it would be like living on Mars, cold, dry, and with severe storms. You'd need to build reinforced homes to withstand the extreme conditions. If Earth were shaped like a slice of pizza instead of the whole pie, gravity would pull toward the center of the slice. The slice would need to be thicker to maintain geological stability. If it were too thin, it would lose its magnetic field, atmosphere, and collapse under its own weight. A magnetic field is crucial for life because it protects the planet from solar radiation. Without it, you'd get cooked by the sun, and all the oxygen would escape into space. To keep the magnetic field intact, the pizza slice would need to be at least 6,000 kilometers thick, about half as wide as Earth. Even then, life on this planet would be rough. On this pizza-shaped Earth, flat-earthers imagine the sun would be much smaller and closer to the surface, creating hot spots directly beneath it. Summers would be hellish, and mornings would require fire protection suits just to survive. At night, temperatures would cool, but during the day, it would be unbearable. In a more realistic take, a pizza-shaped Earth would still orbit the sun and rotate, creating seasons and a day-night cycle. The moon would continue to regulate tides. But climate would still be a problem. The center of the pizza Earth would have mild weather, while the edges would experience severe storms and extreme temperatures. Life on this new Earth would be vastly different from what we know. If Earth were shaped like a slice of pizza rather than the whole pie, we'd face even stranger and more chaotic conditions. The gravitational forces would still pull toward the center, but the unique geometry would mean that the further you moved from the center, the weaker gravity would become. Life at the thick base of the slice might feel somewhat normal, as gravity there would be more stable. But as you ventured toward the thin, pointed edge of the slice, things would get bizarre. The gravity would be so weak that walking would feel like hopping in low gravity, similar to what astronauts experience on the moon. Imagine having to tie yourself down to avoid floating away on windy days. The geological challenges would also be enormous. For one, a thin planetary crust wouldn't be able to support tectonic activity, which is crucial for maintaining the balance of elements and recycling nutrients that sustain life. Earthquakes, volcanic activity, and the movement of continents would likely cease, making the planet geologically dead. Without these processes, the planet's magnetic field would weaken or disappear, exposing the surface to the harsh realities of space, solar radiation, cosmic rays, and constant bombardment by solar winds. Without a magnetic field to protect us, the atmosphere would gradually erode, leading to conditions similar to those on Mars, where the lack of a thick atmosphere makes survival nearly impossible. But let's not stop there. Imagine how the oceans would behave on a pizza slice-shaped Earth. Water, which naturally pools and flows according to gravitational forces, would be dragged toward the center of the slice. This would leave the outer edges dry, barren, and lifeless, while creating a massive central ocean at the thick base of the slice. You might have thriving civilizations living along the coastlines of this enormous, warm sea. But as you travel toward the pointy end of the slice, the water would become scarcer, and you'd find vast stretches of desert-like terrain, with perhaps the occasional dried-up lakebed as a reminder of where water once flowed. The weather would be equally chaotic. The vast central ocean would drive intense storms, much stronger than anything we experience today. These storms would constantly swirl toward the center of the planet, pulled by the central gravitational force. The further you went from the center, the drier and colder the climate would become, with harsh winds constantly whipping across the land. If you tried to live near the thin edge of the slice, you'd have to deal with brutal dust storms, extreme temperature fluctuations, and an atmosphere too thin to breathe properly. This thin, dry region would resemble the conditions found in Earth's most desolate deserts, but even more extreme. And what about the seasons? On this pizza slice Earth, the tilt of the planet's axis would still influence the seasons, but the effect would vary dramatically depending on where you lived. Near the center, the temperature changes would be moderate, and the seasons would feel much like they do on our current, spherical Earth. However, near the thin edge of the slice, the weaker gravity and thinner atmosphere would exaggerate the seasonal differences. Summers would be scorching, with little atmosphere to block the sun's intense rays, while winters would be freezing, as the lack of atmospheric insulation would allow heat to escape rapidly. Traveling on a pizza slice-shaped Earth would also be an unusual experience. If you wanted to move from the thick base of the slice to the thin tip, you'd experience a gradual but noticeable shift in gravitational pull. In the thick regions, cars, trains, and airplanes would function much like they do today. But as you move toward the edge, the weaker gravity would make transportation more challenging. Vehicles would need to be specially designed to deal with the strange gravitational effects, and people might even be able to leap long distances or float short distances due to the lower gravity. In fact, sports and recreation on this pizza-shaped world could be wildly different, with athletes able to perform superhuman feats like running faster, jumping higher, and even flying for short distances by simply pushing off the ground. If this pizza-shaped Earth were to have a moon orbiting it, things would get even more complicated. The gravitational interaction between the moon and this oddly shaped planet would likely be unstable. The moon's gravity could create massive tidal waves in the central ocean, while the weaker gravity at the edges of the slice might result in strange, inconsistent tides. The moon itself might even pull on the thin edges of the pizza slice, causing the planet's crust to warp and stretch over time. This could lead to bizarre geological formations, like mountain ranges twisting and bending in unnatural ways, or deep cracks forming along the edges of the slice as the planet's thin crust is pulled in different directions. As we wrap up, it's safe to say that life on a pizza-shaped Earth would be anything but ordinary. Between the strange gravitational pulls, the chaotic weather, and the extreme environments, it would be a world full of challenges and constant surprises. Whether you're scaling the mountain crusts at the edges or braving the wild storms near the center, living on this cosmic pie would require some serious adaptation, and maybe a love for adventure.